So, I've spoken so much to other people about the topic of veganism, and it's funny because every time I talk to people about this subject, or at least people within the natural law community in particular, they're always saying, this is the most conflicting subject. I just can't wrap my head around it. Is that because it is the most, um, dominant form of domination, as Mark Passio mentions, or is it actually because it's a conflict of instinct, which I'm going to share here? And I think that all the perspectives deserve to be shared here. And, talking about such ancient ideologies and understanding natural law in relationship to this, there's a lot of connections that could be made. There's a lot of points that could be made. And I'm sure I'm going to miss so many here just in this podcast. So I will maybe make this a little long, but for the sake of describing the different points of view here. So just a little background on me. If you do look at my past videos, you would see, well over 100% of that content was all health. I'm a health coach. I studied nutrition over hundreds of different diets, and veganism is just one of them. Okay, but again, most people through the natural law community are going to view this through morality. They're not going to view this through health, and that's why a lot of people say veganism is more of a religion, more of a way of ethics rather than a diet. And some will say, oh, well, it's the way of life, right? It's the way life is supposed to be. It's the natural diet. And I did a video on the natural diet. And, that goes over some things that might shock people on both sides of, whether you eat meat or eat plants. And you'll notice, well, okay, there's foods that you can't get all the nutrients from in plants, but at the same time you have meat products, but wait, some of them are raw. Wait, what about organs and blood and raw milk? What's going on here, Cory? Like, why are you publishing a video like this, right? So these might be some of the thoughts that you might run by, and I don't blame you for being confused, especially nowadays. You need to first understand the dieting industry is billions and billions of dollars. Lobbying and pushing for these books of all different diets. If you think of a name of a diet, I guarantee you it exists, right? And the whole point of my book that I'm going to share is, I'm going to tear it all apart. My health book is going to destroy pretty much all the health books out there, let's just say, putting it out there. I can't wait to release my book on this subject matter. Is it going to go full into morality? Not necessarily, but it will indeed talk about it because it is important. For again, morality is in everything. Natural law is the solution to the world's problems, and for many reasons, to which within itself requires a lot of understanding. But you think diet, right? Something that we just eat, that should be easier. That should be easier than understanding natural law, and actually, it is. So again, we live in the modern world, and this natural perspective is not so often seen. And I'm afraid it doesn't matter where you come from, especially if just being in the modern world, you are already detached of so many natural elements from nature. It's unbelievable how much you actually may be. And it's inconceivable by the mind to really wrap our head around what is natural in such a world that is just surrounded by aspects that have become detached. But yet you say, well, Cory, nature's still all around us. Nature's still here. We're part of nature. I say, yeah, this is the irony, right? And then you say, well, how does that help us get answers? Well, it's understanding that irony. And so we notice this irony then when we talk about veganism, right? And is it because people just want to keep meat in their diet? Or is it actually because there's a level of instinct in human beings? So I mentioned instinct. This is something we should not ignore. So first of all, let's go over what the average vegan does. The average vegan, okay, which by the way, let's actually first make the biggest disclaimer that health does not equal veganism, and morality does not equal veganism. Natural law does not equal veganism. Veganism is just some term, another ism, religion, that we wrap our heads around and is going to prevent us from the knowledge that we can seek from our own environment and experiences and instincts, and talk about neocortex, thinking higher about what's going on. So positive natural law expression is not just love but knowledge. There's no knowledge in just telling someone go vegan because it's moral. And you say, oh, well, the morality, that understanding is the knowledge, right? And love becomes before knowledge. You can make that case example, sure. But let's not forget that humans are just like every other animal. We're animals. There's a neocortex in our brain, and there's also the mammalian, reptilian brain, which is instinct. This can't go ignored. It's just like saying right brain, left brain. They're both crucial aspects. Sure, we live in this left brain dominant society, and they may tend to eat meat, but they're eating unhealthy meats, right? And those are the products that are pushed. And then for veganism, I noticed, right? There's a lot of processed vegan foods because they have the word vegan on it. People will buy it, and those are pushed by the propaganda industries constantly. I'll see more than ever supplements being sold to vegans, and so that's the point I was going to mention before. Is just look at all the average vegans. They can become skin and bones, and this is something I've had to worry about with myself to some extent, and pretty much every vegan seems like they start to have these issues of losing too much weight due to malnutrition. And despite getting all the protein they need, supposedly, you have to question where's the bioavailability. There's a difference between saying, well, this has protein, that has protein, and then knowing the actual bioavailability, which means what's actually getting absorbed into your bloodstream, what's actually going to be used as building blocks for your repairing organs, for staying lean and reducing body fat and so forth, and not just going skin and bones like a lot of vegans have. Not to mention, there's many, many, many deaths from babies who are raised vegan, and there's a whole epidemic out there of malnutrition around the subject because people have this religion telling them what to do, meanwhile their body's telling them, I need animal fat. So an example of this is a vegan who gets coconut oil, and I know this is very controversial, some people don't want to hear it. Well, guess what? I'm sorry. It's just the reality of the situation. People will buy coconut oil, people will get avocados, they'll get all these plant-based fats, and their body clearly loves it, they love it, but the reason why they're buying that is because their body truly craves animal fats, and because they're not giving their body exactly what it needs, because animal fats are very unique, they're superior, very high quality saturated fat, especially from high quality sources, and very high quality protein, many vitamins and nutrients which plants don't have at all, which is really what a lot of vegans forget to mention. But am I saying it's essential for our survival? Well, going along with instinct, this makes sense now. Okay, so vegans will give themselves every excuse not to eat meat. And so although, okay, they claim that they're not harming the environment as much, they're still doing harm. And actually, one of the bad parts about veganism is they're not acknowledging the animals who died for their food. This is another thing. Now, this may sound crazy to you, and trust me, I know all the vegan arguments out there and all the meat ones, because I sit here on the sidelines every day, having knowledge of these different diets, and having this as my main passion in life. It's not natural law, folks. If you know anything about me, I'm more passionate about health than anything else. In fact, I can't help but talk about natural law and always connect it back to health some way, somehow. You should just know that about me. And I've always was able to retain information about health, unlike anything else. Partly, yes, because it's very important to me and I see the value in it, just like natural law, but because, it was my first passion. It's what got me into everything. I've had transformations myself, and I've helped my whole family, with changing and making a clean diet. There's a difference between clean and what you call healthy, what's healthy for each individual, what's moral. These are different topics, not to be taken all as one. You would think that the moral diet is healthiest. Well, actually it is, but the moral diet is not excluding all animal products, because you're still doing harm to animals by growing plants, and you're tilling all the soil and so forth. Larkin Rose makes a lot of these great points in his video, which I recommend, about veganism, which again was not received so well by the natural law community, because Mark Passio is telling people to go vegan. Larkin Rose is just saying, well, don't push your religions on people, which is the whole idea of statism, by the way. And so it's counterintuitive what I see Mark Passio is teaching about veganism, and I'm just going to say that outright. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a differing opinion in a crowd of people who generally agree on natural law and statism, which is the root cause. So the conclusion I make here, ultimately with veganism, is it's a lost cause. It hurts the cause of natural law. It's not important. It's not actually helpful. If you were, okay, take this for example, and this really tells you all of it. If you were to eliminate statism, okay, what's going to happen? Everybody starts having their own farms. Everybody starts raising their own cattle, right? Very nutritious, especially in survival times. People getting backyard chickens for a good reason. Providing them a good space, a good living space. They provide for us, we provide for them. It's a give and get situation. That's why they bless cows in India. They see them as holy. All the religious texts are not vegan. There's no such thing as veganism in nature. And what we see is constant use of animal fats across every single ancient civilization. And I notice I'm jumping from topic to topic, but the point is, okay, you have the neocortex, right? High order thinking, it's going to make these decisions. Then we have this instinct, which tells us what to do. So are we going to just ignore instinct and just go right for the religion that blocks our instinct altogether? No, we should listen to both. That's my conclusion. Just like anything, we need to find that balance. And if anything, we're using our neocortex better, the whole of the two brain hemispheres, by understanding, what our body is telling us and what the environments are telling us. Everybody's got different environments. To push one thing onto all those people is very, very not good. This is the whole idea of why statism is also bad. I talk about things through the lens of what is natural and what is unnatural, not necessarily what's immoral, moral, but what happens to be natural is always what's healthy and causes the least amount of harm. So when people are having a variety of different foods in their diet, like those wild, original, healthy plants that they grow themselves, okay, least man-made as possible, even though all plants practically are nowadays, which is why meat can be seen as something very natural, depending on how you view things, of course. And then what about raw? Raw fruits and vegetables, full of water, and then animal products are, human beings usually drink blood. This may seem shocking to people. This is common Asian cuisine. Asians live some of the longest in the world. Plenty of meat products in their diet. Look at Hong Kong, look at Japan, But what we notice with the blue zones, which is the people who live the longest in the world, meat is still consumed. This doesn't have to be a whole lot. They're growing everything themselves. They're active. They're just having a nice social community. And guess what, folks? That's what happens in a world without statism. Exactly that. Meat products aren't everywhere. They're not being overly produced and, outrageously to the extreme called carnism. People automatically think that carnism is just eating meat. Well, what is veganism? It's not just eating plants. You can be paleo and you're eating plants. You could be keto and you're eating avocado. It's considered a plant. Okay? Which, keto can be done plant-based. So is paleo in a way. And depends, what meat products you want to exclude. David Wolf was a vegetarian, almost like vegan, pretty much for most of his life. And as somebody who's done a lot of research and really had to help out a lot of people, he's like, sorry, but they need animal fats. They have to. Women need it through time. They need ghee. They need some sort of animal fat. It's essential. And that cholesterol, it's your main hormone. People who have higher cholesterol can live longer. And then it's like, oh, you'll see all these conflicting studies, and that's what's going to throw everybody off, right? Is this diet's doing this diet's doing that, and they all contradict each other. Why do you think I wrote a book on this subject, folks? Why do you think I did that? And I know there's people writing books right now. People have told me, I'm going to write a book about natural law and diet. Yeah, good luck. It's not going to be a natural perspective. If it's excluding instinct, if it's not talking about survival and what individuals would do in nature, you're losing touch with it. Because in nature, yeah, there aren't rulers. It's tribalism. You're working with other people. You're building communities. You're building trust with people. You don't put your beliefs in some foreign extreme entity you don't know. It's absurd. You're always going to have communities and people working together, and that's voluntary relationships. It's voluntarism. And listen, animals, they can eat dead matter. They're not just taking our food. They can eat dead matter, and they can convert that to food. And they're converting that into, again, like a lot of vitamins humans can get. So particularly, because vegans can't name vitamins for their life. You're talking vitamin B, a lot of the B vitamins, vitamin D, K2, some essential amino acids, and then you wonder why whey protein is pretty effective and so forth. But again, question, why would we eliminate something that's been part of the human diet for thousands and thousands of years? Okay, and all the tribes of the world, very down to earth, close to earth, literally connected to nature, and you don't question one bit. You want to have your religion of morality ruling over this. So again, you're still doing harm no matter what. And some problems I do notice with the meat eating community, like people like Sfarage, who is extremely on that meat path, which again I don't disclaim, and I think his perspective is actually good, and so is Agnes van der Planet, who's somebody who definitely deserves credit in the health field, doesn't really get it a whole lot, but people are waking up to that. They come to a lot of conclusions that are very natural, which I think a lot of the world would underestimate or not understand. And they practice what they preach to the full extent, and they understand the government, they have no right to rule over us. Nature, there's no such thing as this entity that they're proclaiming to be. It's the reason why they avoid the plants is because they're all man-made. Look at a watermelon old versus a watermelon new. Look at a banana old versus a banana new. Now it's all sugar and water. And then there's anti-nutrients and oxalates and so forth. These plants don't want to be eaten. They have defense mechanisms of their own. And you see the science coming out by the day. Keto and paleo debunking the science that came out 20, 30 years ago. What did the slaves eat? They ate grain diets. That's what they feed people in the prisons too, and all these places. Look at the food pyramid. The bottom of it, the base, is all grain. And yet vegans are perfectly fine with grain. Doesn't matter how it affects their glycemic index. Doesn't matter how much their insulin is spiking. They're going to stick with it. Doesn't matter how much malnutrition they're getting. They're just going to focus on the protein and what the numbers and what the the mainstream science is telling them. Because let's be honest, the mainstream science is pushing a lot of veganism. There's a lot of social justice warriors pushing veganism, and this is another contradiction I see in Mark Passio's work. He's constantly talking about New Agers, right? And the New Agers, well, what do they tend to be? Vegans. But yet, we understand that their very right brain mentality makes sense. Left brain, follow your instinct, action. You need to survive. So, and not to mention, but we can get a lot of this stuff mixed up with one another, and religion is not morality, because Farage got that wrong, and that's what I was going to mention. Some of the meat eaters, they might have morals wrong altogether. Some of them, not all of them. Again, you can't put everybody into one bubble. And they may see morality through the most instinct-based perspective, which Farage tends to take, where there's basically not much neocortex at work, and that's the problem I see within his point of view is, well, if you truly claim to be of the natural, the neocortex is a human natural ability. There needs to be a balance, again, a bridge between the neocortex and the instinct, both parts of the human brain. So it's that human brain and the reptilian mammalian. So it's that which we need to seek within our own lives, okay? I don't want to see people restricted to religions. When it comes to diet, this is why I always promote integrative nutrition. It's integrative. What does that mean? You're adding in. You add in, you see how your body reacts, and you're combining all these different elements from all these different diets, from all these different understandings, using knowledge, positive natural law expression, loving your body, giving love to it by giving what it needs. So not doing self-harm, therefore making yourself happy, which is health, what health is supposed to be. And, boom. That's where your health is going to be. Health is happiness. You're becoming more whole. You're eating what you are made of. And, let's face it, it's bacteria, which plants, especially modern day plants, is not going to have, but animal products definitely will, especially in its raw form, which, like I said, Europe, Asia, they do it a lot. And America barely does any fermented foods or raw foods, and everything is bacteria. I'm afraid that the bacteria is going to kill me. Meanwhile, there's bugs and bacteria literally inside of you. Meanwhile, in nature, you wouldn't be afraid of bugs. So here's what debunks Sfarage's instinct-based morality, right? Because he thinks all morals come from religions, which is not the case, because morality is inherent to natural law. I bet, he's not doing something bad because he knows it's bad. He knows it's going to give him bad. He does it on a daily basis. Whether you follow religion or not, people are going to follow morals. Okay, so whether they make fun of morals or not, as a, quote-unquote moral thing, they're following it within their own life and nature. They're doing it naturally whether they recognize it or not, because they realize they have to do good in order to get good. Is that always going to result in good? No, but it's generally going to be the attraction, of course, right? You're not going to intentionally do bad. What do you expect to get from that? You're not going to get something good. So the best you can do is intentionally do your best. Doesn't mean you do something and expect everything good to just come to you. But the example here is, let's say you get bullied, right? And now, you'd say you're young, right? Very, maybe instinct-based, not a fully developed neocortex. And, the world especially is going to train you in that instinct base, so that way you're not thinking so much about the world about you. But it's not a natural instinct base, and I think that's where people get confused about it. So you're stuck in that instinct base, and I'm sorry, I got so many different thoughts to mention after this. And so you get bullied, and now you feel like you have to give payback, revenge. So, you feel like maybe I gotta kill him, right? A form of violence, which is inherently a moral nature. But what good is that going to do? It's like David Icke makes this point a lot because he talks about the themes of love and fear. And again, no lens of religion ever seen. In fact, Mark Passio teaches natural law, and, well, we say religion restricts the mind. So Sverige, I think, just hasn't really reached to this level of information, but his mind is still very naturalistic. He still generally agrees with all of this, just using different words upon the matter. And, thinking that it's all just religion, but again, like, he's following it himself. So, but the point is let's say someone bullies you and you feel like you have to be revenged. It's not going to help the situation by doing something bad to that folk. And I see people, that was somebody who made that example in the comments, and they were right. But then other people were like, yeah, I should just listen. If I gotta kill somebody, if they make me upset, that's nature. I just gotta follow my bloodlust. That's not the case. That's following full instinct. It's not caring about somebody else, which you are fully capable of as a human being. Those thoughts, those higher thoughts that say, well, that's not going to result in something good. Humans are able to bring order, hence why they have this love and fascination for order through so many different means. And this is where, the natural perspective is just gets so twisted and malformed and all over the place in the modern world. But again, I don't blame Sverige. I think it's a rather good perspective. I don't see that as bad, his instinct-based approach. But the neocortex will add more balance to that. And again, where I see Mark Passio's view in veganism, needs a bit more instinct on that regards, and a bit more of the left brain element of action in regards to following the instinct. But it's both sides of the brain as usual. It's always everything at work, so you can contradict me in different ways, I'm sure. The next point I want to make is, like I said, plants don't want to be eaten. What I mean by that is Mark Passio makes the case, plants don't have, animals have a nervous system, plants don't have one, so they don't feel pain. But clearly plants are very intelligent within nature, as everything is, right? We even say so, deism, understanding that, there is intelligence everywhere within the universe. You'll see that there were plants in nature, like the Venus flytrap, that will, react and defend itself. Cactus, with its sharp spikes and its poisons, which can kill, its animals, anybody, humans or not. And you have sunflower plants. This is just basic, but they'll move toward the sun. They're intelligent, okay, nonetheless. Now, there's other plants that will hire bugs to protect it and give it food in response. So now what do you have for a situation there? You have the plants intelligently, wanting defense. They don't want to be eaten. And there's a reason then why you see there's so many anti-nutrients, oxalates, and bad things like fiber, which can be a bad thing for human beings. Now, fiber can be generally beneficial depending on our perspective, and maybe even our digestive elements combined together. So many different components when it comes to digestion, because digestion is the root to all evil, as said by the father of medicine himself. And so you'll find yourself mixed in a whole bunch of different information when it comes to that. And you always will when it comes to diet. Morality can get clear on. You want to try to do as least harm as possible. Look, that could mean having an animal if it's going to help you survive, if it's going to help you convert dead matter into potent forms of energy, if it's going to, help you with this companionship, which you see as necessary in nature to some regards, and as there's so many scriptures talking about. And this is, again, the cycle of life, this birth and death. But you see so many people nowadays want to basically idolize these forms, and it's not natural. They actually hate humans. They hate these natural processes within themselves, and they're forcing these processes, and it becomes problematic. But see, the cycle of life and death is rather just what it is. It's not actually a problem in nature. It just happens. So when it comes to reducing harm, the best we can do is get in control of our life, get in control of our health. And like I said, reducing statism is the number one thing people can do. By adding veganism into the mix of natural law, we're moving on to a whole nother scene which doesn't seem to fit. It seems to contradict ourselves time and time again, and it lacks knowledge from the point of view of Mark. I'm sorry, but it does. And that's just coming from somebody who not only studies nutrition, but has the understanding and moral philosophy that, our ancestors, they didn't even hunt necessarily. They could have also scavenged, and people were eating bugs by the day. Again, they have bugs inside of us. What about the bugs, man? What about the bugs? We're basically living bacteria. We're not even 1% human. We're all bacteria. We're made of bacteria. And again, you are what you eat. You want to eat something full of indigestible fibers, something you have to cook to death, something you have to completely supplement, something you have to blend into a smoothie, and do all these malformations just to put yourself under some religion, which none of that is natural. Or do you want to just listen to your body, find out what works for you, and take control of your health, take control of your life, which, both are basically the same thing. Both is what really health comes down to. And you will feel much better about yourself, and you will do the world less harm as a whole, through every aspect, not just with animals, but the environment. Okay, the environment, the people, including yourself, and maybe even the utensils, all these different things, right, are all forms of harm. If you're going to talk about veganism, you might as well just start talking about everything. You might as well just start going fasting, right? Because now you're not eating any food. Now you're not contributing any harm to the universe. Well, guess what? You're starving yourself to death, but oh, it's healthy. You're clearing your body out of toxins. So, just because it's got eyes in the mouth, all of a sudden, we say, oh, well, off limits. Is that what makes it different? The fact that it's conscious? Well, what makes plants any different? They still have standards for living. They have requirements for living. You don't think they want to live? It's in their blueprint to live, just as everything else in this world is, right? We all want to live. That's the goal of humanity, is just to live prosperous and healthy. And the goal of our ancestors was what? To live. And to make sure and secure that future for their grandchildren, their children ahead, to live on, healthy and happy. Which is why some of the best things you can give your baby is raw milk and animal organs. Okay, to grow their own organs, to nourish them like breast milk. Okay, and so vegans will claim, oh, well, again, because I know all their arguments, so people want to throw them at me, but it's just like, I already know. They'll say, oh, well, that milk is meant for the calf. It's not made for the human. It's just like human breast milk is made for the human baby. Well, that's what makes it so effective, folks, for the human baby. There's actual herbivore animals, so-called herbivore animals, because people also use this as an example, right? Is saying, well, we're herbivores. Look at our teeth structure, our body structure. Look at our nails. We don't have sharp claws. They'll use all these examples. Doesn't all line up. Canine teeth and the stomach bacteria, the ability of our stomach acid to break down everything so easy. The fact that people are losing weight and are so healthy and eating meat, the possibilities of it, you're just going to discount that all and say, well, it's just not the way life is supposed to be. What do you expect? Everybody to just follow this one doctrine? Okay, show people a different point of view, but don't push it on them and say it's the only way. That is when it becomes a problem. And that's when you start getting people confused. If you don't want people confused and you want them knowledgeable, you help them learn for themselves, given all the options. Instead of telling them, well, here's the drug to your solution, propose to them alternative medicine and all the different forms of medicine to maybe help their body. Not one solution. And that's another thing with veganism. There's many diets inside of diets. And as the slides I have, which I could put on the screen for you there, there's just so many aspects to this, which veganism by itself does not take into account. So, I think I've covered a lot here with this topic matter. There's so much to talk about when it comes to this, but thank you for watching. I wanted to get these thoughts out briefly. You know what my answer is to this, and I encourage you, call yourself a bio-individual. You don't call yourself a carnist because you eat some meat. Again, like, it's because I eat some plants. I don't call myself a vegan. A vegan is someone who eats plant-based, all plants. Carnist should then be someone who eats all animals. That's why it's called carnivores. The same thing. Carnism, carnivore, same thing. Okay? And so it's just funny to me. But human beings, as shown evidently just through the possibility, are omnivores, and we can't lose the fact that we've even conditioned ourselves and become into that. We can always try to reduce harm in our environment, but it's not just going to be going vegan, and it's not just going to be, having animals that are going to, contribute to the environment and help us in response. It's going to be a mixture of both aspects, and depending on which environments you live in, you can be in the Arctic for all we know, and you must survive on fish. You can be in the tropics, and all you're surrounded by, is coconuts, and hey, it's pretty close to animal fats, but it's still not animal fats. So, people, they've done it. There's many civilizations who will live for a very long time doing certain things, and because they have a consistent basis, because they have a good social life and other healthy factors, they're generally healthy, which people also take out of consideration. So only integrative nutrition considers not just nutrition, not just ethics to the situation, not just the individual and their situation and their environments, but everything that's off the plate, everything that's not just diet. So are you happy? How's your job? How's your career? Are you exercising? How much water are you drinking? Do you even need water? Do you need hydration through electrolytes and other means? Because water could be dehydrating you, and people can die drinking too much water. Dude, there's possibilities everywhere, and only knowledge can fix that. Dogmas, religions, only gonna stick us into new categories, confuse people, and that's all I've gotten in response from this natural law community when it comes to veganism, is confusion. Mark Passio can do a 3-hour, 6-hour seminar on veganism. Eric DeBay can put out great videos on veganism, and many others can too, but it's only talking about veganism, it's incomplete. If it's only pushing veganism, it's incomplete. And if it refuses to go over all these different points of view and why they're effective and why people believe in them, their ethical points of view, it's also incomplete. If they refuse to go over the ancient knowledge, which they also teach, and all the natural wisdom right from nature, it's very much incomplete. The completeness of this is, again, right brain, left brain, instinct, and cortex, or other words, intuition, and ambition, and they're all essential. So, am I saying eat all the animal products you want? No, but listen to your body. Eat animal products. It's natural for the human diet. Don't restrict yourself to religions. Do what is best for you and your environment. Do what you can to create the least amount of harm. I bet these vegans getting their supplements, exportation all over the place, all this processing, you don't think there's being harm done in the process at all? Just look at what cashew farming is. All the deaths that happen from just, peeling open cashew shells, and then vegans want to claim, oh, well, don't use honey, right? Don't use honey because it's not vegan. You're hurting the bees. Oh, because some small farmers choose to use some chemicals on theirs, doesn't mean other farmers do to extract the honey. Doesn't mean they kill off the whole beehive before the winter, like some people like Earthling Ed push out for propaganda. I'm sorry, but it's propaganda, and even the people on the meat side, propaganda. If they're only pushing one side and not providing you with that fuller picture, it's propaganda. Now, if you are seeking both sides yourself, then it's a different story, but that requires a lot of time, effort, seeking past the confusion, and guess what? You're welcome, I've kind of done that for you. And hence also the reason for my book, which you can stay tuned for, if it's not already out by the time you're listening to this. So, I hope you see where I'm getting with this. There's no clear-cut solution, and that's why the dieting industry hates that, because, as you know, the truth can't be profited on. So don't expect veganism to ever be the answer to anything. There's no law, natural law for veganism. There's no strict standards about it for good reason, because it's very imbalanced and incomplete. So honey was available everywhere back then. Talk about dried fruit and all these so-called sugar alternatives. Not easy to get. It's been over-farmed lately for human consumption. Honey was the universal sugar. You can get it anywhere. Very healthy. Same fructose, glucose as regular cane sugar, and special components, antioxidants, and so forth. People want to claim there's no antioxidants in meat. Oh, there's no fiber in meat, must be bad too. Not always the case. Have an open mind. Don't close your mind. See the perspectives. Honey has been used forever. Okay? Meat products been used forever. Slaves were always given the grain products. People who had the money always went for the expensive meat products, always reserved it for themselves. Always was able to attain that high nutrition for their survival, all about themselves, the ego, right? But no, as humanity, we need to share. We need to share these great, bounties of nature of all kinds, and really just keep things in their natural form, whether it's plants, animals, and whatnot. And if animals are in their natural form, they're free, they're happy, they're doing their thing. And they're going to create harm, we're going to create harm, and that's natural too. The worst thing humans can do is create harm against their own species. It's stupid of us, and that's what we're doing with statism. Totally different from, talking about this whole idea of veganism, carnism, but it's actually the most important, and everything else is just a distraction. It's just going to hurt the cause. So don't distract away from statism. If that's going to help free our population, a free population is a healthy population. A free population is a happy population. And as you know, freedom and morality go hand in hand, folks. People are going to care about what they eat. They're going to look at something, they want to make sure they don't get poisoned. They're not going to be stupid. They're going to be forced to take control of their food supply. And thus, if they feel ashamed of killing an animal, then they're not going to kill an animal. But I guarantee you they will start to learn. Like, think about this. Talk about how detached we are from the modern day, but the average kid or average person who grew up in a household or any modern setting, they see a bug. Oh no, they freak out. It's a bug. Oh my gosh. When you're in nature, it's just a bug. It's just a bug. There's plenty of bugs. What are you going to do about it? You can't cry if you accidentally step over one. Oh, whoops, I should have washed my step earlier. Oh, I'm sorry, there's bugs stinking everywhere. Oh shoot, I just eliminated his food supply, and then thus eliminated his food supply, and thus eliminated his food supply. Now I'm creating harm to everything. You can overthink the whole situation, and that's where instinct comes in. Stop overthinking. So, we can follow natural law and all the morals. Does it apply to eating? Well, there's self-harm and there's balance in the neocortex. And, if it's harm, we're talking about harm of all things. If there's still harm being done by eating plants, especially through modern farming and all these farming practices, especially how dreadful it is for the environment and our bodies and so forth, it's about as equivalent, folks. About as equivalent. In fact, the best thing you can do is always grow it yourself, get the animals yourself, and just be self-sustainable. So that's my conclusion. If you offered a baby, a piece of kale, and compared to a piece of meat, it's most likely going to take the meat. Most people don't like the taste of greens and all these modern day fruits and vegetables. They always have to pour some major sauce over it and season it to death. You may say the same thing about meat, but that's usually in the case of them cooking the meat. And then people also want to criticize dairy as being so bad. They're usually talking about pasteurized dairy, not talking about raw dairy. Again, open your mind to these perspectives. And it sounds all good, like, oh, we can live in harmony with plenty of animals. Very, again, new agey in a way. But, we had companions through many thousands of years, and you don't think we also went hunting with those companions? Those companions also wanted food for themselves. What do they eat? I bet they eat a carnivorous diet. What are you going to restrict them to a vegan diet? They're literally built to be carnivorous. So it's just so funny to me. You want to let all these animals then, just be free on their own. I mean, they're going to get killed no matter what. And they're going to just start, causing harm themselves. I mean, it's all just a balance. It's all just going to come back to the same conclusion. And the same conclusion is that humans just have to be natural. Humans have to just follow their calling. This is why we get stuck in cycles of statism too. People just constantly thinking we need someone to rule over us, but that's not natural. So we need to learn from both these cycles and understand that we need to follow what is natural, so that way we're not always stuck in these diet cycles, these statism cycles, and some of these cycles, we can distinct from one another, but a lot of these cycles all come down to just we're detached from nature. It's one to talk about getting rid of statism, another to talk about let's just go vegan. Like I said, it's the law of freedom. Well, as freedom increases, morality increases. So why do we get to go toward veganism? What does that have to do with freedom? If anything, it's only going to restrict us in saying, well, you have to eat certain foods. It has nothing to do with adding in the foods that you know are going to be beneficial for you, and can very well be restricting your own health from reaching its optimal state, and restricting the amount of nutrients you're getting, restricting the amount of calories you're getting, restricting your own human nature for all we know, as we also describe. See, the natural perspective takes it from the point where it just is, right? And that's why it has a lot of truth to it, is because you see things just as they are. There's less distraction, there's less barriers, there's less illusion in the way. You just see it, and it's there. It's all inherent, right? And that's why natural law is inherent, and it's not really even a thing in nature, but it is in nature. So it's just the recognition of such, which is why I promote it, to help us return to that natural state of the world, and then keep it in circulation, because humans have this fixation with politics and social community. But trying to reduce those cycles and so forth. But it's a mind wrap for sure, and I think it's so simple once you really just see it, just like you do with natural law, that it makes no sense for us to push veganism, just as it makes no sense for us to really push carnism, but rather we should just push our natural living, which is going to include a mixture of both, but it will include some of those to those extremes, according to what nature tells us to do here, and listening to both natural law and our instinct, which is thereof natural law. It comes with the freedom. The reason why there's all these meat imitations, or people are making all these vegan meals meant to resemble the taste or look or texture of meat, is because they have this internal desire to eat animal products often. It's not something you just get rid of out of your diet, and it's also not something you just abandon if it's part of your natural diet. So these are things that have to be considered. Nature doesn't go by any isms, veganism and carnism. It doesn't, these things just don't exist. Nature is just nature. And, if we see it just as such, then we are really getting the truth. Meat products everywhere is a sign of mass production, of domination. That doesn't make meat bad, it makes mass domination bad. That's the difference. Are we looking at meat production or just mass domination? What's the difference here? So that's what we're looking at. So, like as Mark Passio says, looking at causation or the plane of effects, well, what's the cause? The intention, domination in the first place. It's not the meat products, that was the effects. They used that as a means through which it is expressed, but the original intention was domination. And again, the worst and most manipulative form of this type of psychology that is used in this modern world is convincing people that something is natural when it is not, like the government or like veganism, right? This is something that's natural. It's all plants. So, you are the government. It's natural to have someone lead over you, but it sounds good in theory, but is it actually good? No, not at all. It's not natural at all. You don't find this stuff in nature. You don't find any of that stuff in nature. And keep in mind, the people who live in nature, they're not going to record what they eat. They're not going to film it and do all these special fancy recipes. They stay consistent. They're just living life. They're not looking for clouts. They're not convincing themselves of anything. They're not stuck in any religions. They are simply connected to nature. Now, for the different perspective, again, if you want me to just throw out some names for recommendations, just for that different perspective, I would recommend maybe Max Lugavere, Agenus, Vonderplanets, and maybe even Mark Sisson. There's many, many others who have talked about things, and I think, again, the more open-minded they are, the more they talk about different subjects and are willing to go out of their echo chambers and talk more about the truth as a whole, I think the better they are, talking about health as a whole. And so that's just some note upon the matter, or my own observations. And so it's not that I disagree with Mark Passio. In fact, I've only reinforced his understandings of statism, which we all really have been sharing here as the main cause for all the problems that we see. So this is the dichotomy that we must understand. I agree with Mark Passio on everything. I just see that his view of it is just incomplete. That's all. It could be more complete. And his justifications for Carnism, for example, a lot of that is instinct based, but then he leaves out the one part about nutrition, and that one's also really important. So, and then he'll have like a slide about, well, it's the healthiest diet. It's just where are you getting that from? So there's a lot of questions that could be asked about this, and again, what is natural, what is unnatural. It's better you don't ruin your life than malnourish yourself and are unable to produce the milk need for your baby, the nutrients needed for your baby, the just compromising of your survivability and your immune system. It's better that you optimize your nutrition. I mean, when you're in a state of bad health, you realize how much you regret it. If you really want to live life, be happy, you realize how important it is to really take care of your health. And that means, by all means, doing what is best for your body. Okay? And doing what your best is for your body is doing what is most natural. And what is doing what's most natural is not going by the perfect lens of what is moral by only the neocortex. And if you look at all the old versions of these new fruits and vegetables, the old versions were not easy to consume either. And they always took a lot of time of preparation, but they were also not entirely the most digestible. They weren't full of the sugars and full of all the processing that we have turned into for what we call modern fruit and vegetables. It's completely different. They want us to be afraid of bacteria when we are made up of bacteria, when bacteria is what makes up our gut, and our gut is our immune system, and our gut is the root to all disease. It doesn't make sense here, and people want to live in this sterile modern environment, but the most natural environment is the most dirty, so-called quote-unquote dirty, but bacteria variety filled environment. And again, if you think that I'm just saying all this because I'm defending my meat-eating religion, well, let me just say you are in a religion for restricting yourself of anything. And, is it conscious intake? Well, it is conscious intake for me to choose to eat meat products, just as it is conscious intake for me to choose to eat plant products, just as it is conscious action to choose not to contribute harm. Where, given the environment, when and where, right? There's a time and there's a place for everything. It's funny we talk about the gut, because the gut is often associated with instinct, but the gut is where all the bacteria is, to which bacteria is found in all those animal products, particularly raw animal products. There was a lot of raw fermented foods consumed through the generations that our society practically has lost, moving toward the sterile environment. Looking at raw cheeses, even fermented breads, fermented vegetables, raw meats in general, raw dairy, so kefir, not just yogurt. There's so many things out there. Look at Asian cuisine. There's plenty of raw foods, and there's so much variety, and they're doing so well. And so to conclude, I've written down a little part here. This is like an extra conclusion, right? So, quote, if you lived in the African savannah, would a lion that spots you in the open think about the pain that you may feel about being eaten? $1,000 says no. Creatures do not do what they have to do to survive, because that's what nature intended. Okay, so now that's from someone on a website. This proves how humans have now dominated the scene, coming from nature based on survival, to now utilizing our neocortex and higher order natural law principles. It's a greater understanding of how nature works, and with a greater grasp upon how we go about in nature. We now know how essential animal products are, but also how we should seek to minimize harm done to the earth, mostly applying natural law not to the ideas of health, but to that of freeing the human condition, to that of knowledge itself, and so health will come with it naturally. Modern problems are as ancient problems. They require a modern solution, as are ancient solutions. The least harm in health and cruelty of all kinds, as I've also showed in the videos, is family farming and local agriculture of all kinds, both plants and animals of high quality, some fasting, exercise, non-food life essentials, and sunlight. When we are in constant states of unnatural or uncontrolled instinct, we are in fear, dependence. Bio-individual, you are studying yourself, you are unique. That's what makes it beautiful. Bio-individual, that's what you are. You're not a carnist, you're not a vegan, you're a bio-individual. In a world surrounded by humans, it's no wonder why we ignore these instincts. And people are still going to throw things at me, I'm sure, for sake of trying to defend their religion. But there's a common rule in nature from when humans are in nature and they are observing the nature of other animals, and that is kill or be killed, eat or be eaten, right? And of course this doesn't apply to other humans because they have a greater ability to think and therefore can do trades, can therefore do negotiation. But you can't stop an animal from attacking you unless you run, unless you fight back. You have no choice, and you say, oh, well, in that case it's self-defense. But animals, they only run by this instinct. They don't have that neocortex ability to higher orderly think beyond the normal habits of behavior and normal instinctual gut behavior, just telling you what to do and you just going with it. So again, we need both, the neocortex and the gut, the instinct. Very, very important. It's like saying, well, what are the most important organs in your body? Well, the heart, for caring about other people, caring about animals, having some as companions, right? I mean, they're going to want to, kill too, but you have a brain, okay, which is able to think, but also able to carry out instinct, and that gut, which is to really actually carry it out.
A lot of people in today's society, wouldn't surprise me, they don't have guts to kill an animal. They've never been in nature. They don't even have a gut because they're not in nature, because the bacteria is not exposed to different environments. And I will say I'm also one of those people, right? Because I was grown up in a modern environment, surrounded by humans. So we get this one-sided story. We lose a part of our nature unless we actually seek to understand that the instinct is essential, just as neocortex is. Higher order thinking is essential. We can make negotiations with humans. We know it's going to do us better in the long run. With animals, we can treat them justly with our neocortex as well, right? Choosing good actions to do as well. But when it comes to survival, we need to do what nature tells us to do as well. And nature doesn't tell us to rule over other people. It tells us to stay with our tribe, to hang out with our loved ones and keep them safe, protect them. Don't trust new people. But what we learn from nature is to kill other animals and eat them as food. For that situation. Two different situations. Statism and Carnism. Not one and the same. Okay, in Carnism, again, I'm just going to say, it's just eating animals. It's just eating animals. It's not Carnism. It was always smarter for humans to, particularly have the product of an animal, not just the animal itself, because that way they also get more food out of it. And then you say, oh, well, then there were slaves, and you not wanting veganism is the fear of freedom, right? But these are, again, excuses that don't pertain to the topic of statism. We're talking about diet. We're talking about health. And putting a religion on top of health could be a very dangerous thing in a world surrounded by health catastrophe and health lack of knowledge, awareness. And you're not going to bring up that knowledge by telling someone what to do. You're going to bring up the knowledge by showing them differing sides and helping them with their overall peak mental health so that they can make better decisions in life. So that way they can learn natural law. And suitable to their environment, to which is always going to be more beneficial than bad in all ways. I never denied that plants should not be, the emphasis. I'm denying that animal products should just be excluded altogether, 100%, completely, and for everyone. And plus, not to mention, it's actually unrealistic. You're not going to stop people from doing it. It's so ingrained in our instinct. You'd be taking away our nature and already being God. And that's something we want to prevent in the first place. Nature is the answer tells us that we need to eat animals, and that we should not we should actively not try to do harm to anything, whether it's plants, animals, people, doesn't matter. And people are animals, so everything. We don't want to harm anything, right? So it's all about reducing overall harm to the whole environment, including thyself. And so nature's answer tells us not to go vegan like all the vegans do, in which they give themselves all these synthetic drugs and supplements in order to get all the nutrients that they can't get from plants because they can only get it from animals. See, veganism is not going to lead to you knowing the nature of statism and how to defeat it and why it's so bad and how you can teach others as well. It's not going to teach you that, but nature will. And nature will teach you everything. Nature will tell you that you should use knowledge for everything if you want to teach, if you want to learn, and if you want to truly make the best of actions of all things.
We went from a world of instinct to a world of the neocortex. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's that we shouldn't forget instinct. And a very bad thing is that, well, you can take Twinkies and, a lot of pills and boom, you got a vegan diet.
I'm going to leave it there for this one. I thank you for listening. This is Cory Endrulat. Nature is the answer. And do listen to your body. Do your best to always do your best. And keep it up.
Keep it up. Eliminate statism and everything will fall into place. What do I mean by everything? What is natural for humanity? That's it. What is natural? Stop focusing on all these other, small factors. What is natural is ultimately the root cause to everything.